Miranda Sterling ripped the badge from James Carter's chest so hard the lanyard snapped. 17 years. 17 years of midnight emergencies, of keeping this hospital alive, of saving lives. No one ever counted, and she tore it away like garbage. His 9-year-old daughter stood frozen in the doorway, watching her father be stripped of everything. "Get out," Miranda said. "Both of you." 18 minutes later, 47 patients flatlined simultaneously. The backup generators failed, and the only man who could save Sterling Medical Center was walking down Michigan Avenue with a little girl who wouldn't stop crying. He should have kept walking. He didn't. "Drop your city below. I want to see where this story reaches tonight." Miranda Sterling ripped the badge from his chest. The lanyard snapped. The plastic cracked against her palm. And James Carter. 17 years of service, 4 military tours. Army medic who'd saved more lives than he could count, single father to a 9-year-old girl, stood there and let her do it. "You think you can just walk into my executive suite?" Miranda's voice cut through the room like a scalpel. "You think the rules don't apply to you?" The cooling system failed in pediatrics. James kept his voice level, the way he'd learned to do when officers screamed in his face during basic training. "Kids are up there in 90-degree heat. Some of them are post-surgery. I've been working 14 hours straight trying to fix it. This room was the only place cool enough to catch my breath before I passed out. I don't care if you were dying." She threw the badge on the marble floor. The crack echoed through the silent room. "You're maintenance. You don't belong here. You never belonged here." Behind her, 3 security guards shifted uncomfortably. James knew all of them. Marcus, who he'd helped move into his new apartment last spring. Deshawn, whose mother James had visited in the hospital when she had her stroke. Tommy, barely 22, who still called James Sir because James had served with his grandfather in Desert Storm. None of them moved to help him. "Ms. Sterling," Marcus started. "Did I ask you to speak?" Silence. Miranda turned back to James. Her eyes were cold, calculating the eyes of a woman who'd taken over her family's struggling hospital at 31 and turned it into a $2 billion medical empire by 34. She didn't see a man standing in front of her. She saw a problem, an obstacle, something to be removed. 17 years, James said quietly. "What?" "I've worked in this hospital for 17 years. Started when your mother was still running it into the ground. I know every wire, every pipe, every backup system in this building. I've kept this place running through blackouts, floods, that electrical fire that should have taken the whole East Wing. I held a doctor's hand while he died waiting for the ambulance because traffic was backed up on Lakeshore Drive." He paused. "And you're throwing me out because I needed 5 minutes to cool down." Miranda stepped closer. Close enough that he could smell her perfume, expensive, sharp, nothing like the disinfectant and machine oil that had lived in his pores for almost 2 decades. "Let me make something clear," she said. "I don't care how long you've been here. I don't care what you think you've done. You are replaceable. Everyone in this building is replaceable. The only thing that matters is results. And right now, the only result I see is a janitor who forgot his place." Something twisted in James's gut. Not anger, he'd learned to bury that a long time ago somewhere between his 3rd tour in Afghanistan and his wife's funeral. Something older. Familiar. The same feeling he'd had when the army discharged him after Sarah died, when nobody cared that he'd given everything and had nothing left. When the hospital bills ate through his savings. When he'd stood in line at the food bank, praying Maya wouldn't notice the shame on his face. He was being erased again. "Daddy." The voice came from the doorway. Small. Scared. Maya stood there in her faded Chicago Cubs backpack, her braids escaping from the ribbons he'd tied that morning. Her eyes locked on the badge lying broken on the floor. James's heart stopped. "Maya, what are you doing here?" "School let out early. The AC broke." Her voice trembled. "Mrs. Robinson dropped me off. She said you'd be working late, so I should come find you." She looked at the badge, then at the security guards, then at Miranda. "Daddy, why is your badge on the ground?" Miranda looked at the girl like she was examining a specimen that had wandered into her operating theater. "Get her out of here," she ordered. "Both of them, now." "Wait." Maya stepped forward, and something in her face shifted. The fear didn't disappear, it just moved aside to make room for something else, something harder, something she'd inherited from her mother. "You're the lady from the big office, the one with all the windows." Miranda raised an eyebrow. "My daddy talks about you sometimes." Maya's voice was steadier now. "He says you work really hard. He says you never go home." For a fraction of a second so brief that James almost missed it, Miranda's mask cracked. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers curled at her sides. "He also says," Maya continued, "that some people look at things, but they don't really see them. Like when the building makes noises at night and nobody listens except him. He says that's why things break. Because people stop paying attention." Miranda stared at the little girl. 9 years old. Messy braids. Second-hand shoes. Speaking truth that cut deeper than any boardroom attack she'd ever faced. "Get them out," Miranda said again. But her voice had changed. Quieter. Colder. Like she was trying to freeze something before it could thaw. "Now." The elevator felt like a coffin. James held Maya's hand as they descended. 32 floors. Each one a year of his life he'd never get back. "Daddy?" Maya's voice was small. "Yeah, baby." "Did I say something wrong?" James squeezed her hand. "No, sweetheart. You said something true. That's different." But she looked so mad. Sometimes the truth makes people mad, especially when they're not ready to hear it. The elevator stopped. The doors opened, and James walked out of Sterling Medical Center, the building he'd given 17 years to, holding his daughter's hand, with nothing but the clothes on his back and a broken badge in his pocket. He had $63 in his checking account. Rent was due in 5 days. Maya's school lunch balance was negative $18. The landlord had already slid 2 notices under his door this month. He was 52 years old. A widower. A veteran with a bad knee and no college degree. And he'd just been fired by a woman who'd never bothered to learn his name. "Daddy!" Maya tugged his sleeve as they stepped onto the sidewalk. The Chicago heat hit them like a wall. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. "What are we going to do?" James looked down at his daughter. She was trying so hard to be brave, trying so hard not to cry. Just like she had at her mother's funeral 3 years ago, when she'd held his hand through the whole service and never let go. "We're going to be okay," he said. The words tasted like ash. "We always are." 18 minutes later, his phone rang. They were 2 blocks from the L station. Maya was humming something to herself the way she did when she was trying not to think about hard things. James almost didn't answer, but he recognized the hospital's number. "Mr. Carter." The voice on the other end was panicked. Deshawn, the young security guard who'd stood silent while Miranda destroyed him. "Mr. Carter, you need to come back. Right now. I don't work there anymore." "The hospital's dead. Everything. Lights, elevators, backup systems, all of it. The whole building just went dark." James stopped walking. "What do you mean dark?" "I mean dark. Nothing's working. We got 47 patients on life support. 3 surgeries were happening when the power cut. The transplant team's got a heart arriving in 35 minutes, and no way to keep it viable." Maya looked up at him confused. "That's not my problem," James said. But even as the words left his mouth, he felt something shift in his chest. "Mr. Carter. James, please." Deshawn's voice cracked. "There's a kid in the pediatric ICU. 6 years old. Been fighting leukemia for 2 years. His ventilator just stopped. The manual one's buying time, but the nurse can't keep pumping forever." James closed his eyes. "Fire department. 25 minutes out, maybe more. There's a pileup on the Dan Ryan." "What about the backup generators? They're not kicking on. Nobody knows why. The emergency maintenance crew is trying, but they don't." Deshawn paused. "They don't know this building like you do. Nobody does." James thought about Miranda Sterling ripping the badge from his chest. The look in her eyes. Like he was nothing. Less than nothing. A piece of equipment that had outlived its usefulness. He thought about the $63 in his account. The rent due in 5 days. The job interviews he'd have to sit through at his age with no reference from his last employer, with a gap in his resume that screamed, "Fired." He should walk away. Let them figure it out themselves. Let Miranda Sterling learn what happened when you threw away the people who actually kept the world running. But then he thought about the 6-year-old kid with leukemia somewhere in that dark building, wondering why his machine had stopped. He thought about Mrs. Patterson in the cardiac ward, who always saved him a piece of birthday cake when the staff celebrated. About Maria, the night nurse who worked double shifts to send money to her mother in Guatemala. About the janitors and techs and orderlies who depended on him to keep the heating running through Chicago winters. They didn't choose this. They didn't fire him. "Daddy!" Maya was watching him, reading him the way she always did, the way her mother used to. "You're going back, aren't you?" James looked at his daughter, this fierce, stubborn, too smart little girl who'd already lost so much. "Yeah," he said, "I am." "Even though she was mean to you?" "Even though." Maya nodded slowly, like she was working something out in her head. Then her chin lifted. "Okay, but I'm coming with you." "Maya, you said we're a team." Her eyes locked onto his steady certain, exactly like her mother's used to be when she'd made up her mind about something. Teams don't split up. James wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her to wait at the McDonald's on the corner where it was safe and air-conditioned and far away from Miranda Sterling. But Maya's jaw was set. Her arms were crossed. And he knew that if he walked away from her right now, she'd follow him anyway. "All right," he said. "Stay close. Don't let go of my hand. And whatever happens in there, whatever you see, I know Daddy." Maya squeezed his fingers. "I'm not scared?" She was lying. He could feel her hand trembling. But she wasn't running. "Let's go," James said. The lobby was chaos. Emergency lights cast everything in blood red. People huddled in corners, patients in wheelchairs, nurses clutching clipboards, visitors who'd been waiting for news and were now trapped in a nightmare. Someone was crying. Someone else was shouting into a dead phone. A security guard was trying to calm a woman who kept screaming that her husband was in surgery, that they had to do something, that someone had to help. James pushed through the confusion, Maya's hand locked in his. He moved with purpose, with direction, like a man who knew exactly where he was going. Because he did. "James." Deshaun appeared from the crowd, his face slick with sweat. "Thank God. It's bad. Really bad." "I know." James was already heading toward the service corridor. "The main junction's in the sub-basement. If I can reroute power from the emergency grid, I can get critical systems back online. But the failsafe, forget the failsafe. The failsafe's dead. I need to bypass it manually." Deshaun jogged to keep up. "Can you do that?" "Guess we're going to find out." "Mr. Carter." Deshaun grabbed his arm. "She's looking for you. Ms. Sterling. She's in the executive command center losing her mind. The board's on the phone demanding answers. If she sees you, she can wait." James reached the service elevator, the old one, the manual one that nobody used anymore because it was slow and loud and smelled like motor oil. The one that still worked without power because it ran on a separate mechanical system. He pulled open the gate and stepped inside. "Stay here," he told Maya. "No." "Maya, I'm not playing." "Neither am I." Her eyes were fierce, stubborn. "I'm not leaving you. Not ever." James looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then he reached out and pulled her inside. "Hold on tight," he said. "And don't touch anything." The sub-basement was a maze of shadows and pipes. James moved through it like a man walking through his own bloodstream. He'd spent more hours down here than he could count. Knew every valve, every junction, every quirk of the aging infrastructure that the executives never saw and never thought about. The building talked to him. It always had. He'd heard it the first week on the job, back when Maya's mother was still alive, back when James thought he'd only stay a few months until something better came along. He could hear it now. The wheeze of dying pumps, the groan of overloaded circuits, the desperate hum of systems trying to stay alive. "It's hot down here," Maya whispered. "I know, baby. We won't be long." "What's that sound, that clicking?" James paused, listened. Click, click, click. "That's the backup generator trying to start, but something's blocking it." "What?" "That's what we're here to find out." They reached a junction box in the corner, a massive steel panel covered in warning labels and safety locks that most people would need 3 keys to open. James had learned to open it with a screwdriver and a prayer. There. He pointed inside the panel where a blackened component sat amid a tangle of wires. "See that? That's the capacitor. It's supposed to jumpstart the backup power when the main grid fails." "It looks burned." "That's because it is. I flagged this 6 months ago, wrote a report, filed a requisition." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Got rejected. Not in the budget." Maya watched him with serious eyes. "So they knew it was broken." "They knew. And they didn't fix it." "No." "Why?" James pulled out his tools, the same kit he'd carried for 17 years, worn leather case every instrument in its place. "Because fixing things costs money," he said. "And people like Ms. Sterling don't spend money on things they can't see." "But you could see it." "Yeah, baby, I could." He went to work. His hands moved from memory testing connections, tracing faults, coaxing the old systems back to life. The junction box was hot, too hot. The wiring was frayed in places it shouldn't be frayed. Every time he touched a connection, sparks jumped and danced like angry fireflies. One wrong move and he'd fry himself. But somewhere above him, 47 patients were waiting. Surgeons were standing over open bodies with nothing but flashlights. A 6-year-old boy was fighting for breath while a nurse pumped his ventilator by hand. James didn't stop, didn't hesitate. "Daddy?" Maya's voice was small in the darkness. "Yeah, baby." "Is this dangerous?" He paused, turned to look at her. Her face was pale in the dim light. Her hands were trembling. But she wasn't running. She was watching him work with eyes that understood more than a 9-year-old should have to understand. "Yeah," he said honestly. "It might be." Maya nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay. Mommy told me stories about you, from the army. She said you did dangerous things all the time." Maya took a shaky breath. "She said you always came back. Always." James felt his throat tighten. Sarah had been gone 3 years, but sometimes in moments like this, he could still feel her presence. Could still hear her voice, telling him to be careful to come home to remember what mattered. "I'll come back," he said. "I promise." "Pinky promise." He held out his pinky. Maya wrapped hers around it. "Pinky promise." 20 minutes later, James made his final connection. His hands were burned in 3 places. Sweat dripped down his face, stinging his eyes. His bad knee had locked up twice, and he'd had to pry it straight while Maya watched with terrified eyes. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And the building roared back to life. Pumps hummed. Circuits sang. The emergency grid handed off to the backup power with a mechanical clunk that echoed through the walls like a heartbeat restarting. Somewhere above them, machines beeped back online. Ventilators resumed their rhythm. Surgeons could see their patients again. A 6-year-old boy took a breath on his own. James slumped against the junction box, hands shaking. "Daddy?" Maya threw her arms around him. He held her tight. His heart was pounding. His hands were trembling. Every muscle in his body ached. But she was safe. The hospital was alive. And somewhere above him, Miranda Sterling was learning what it meant to need the man she'd thrown away like garbage. You did it, Maya whispered. We did it, James said. I couldn't have done it without my flashlight holder. Maya giggled, a small sound, but real. The first genuine laugh he'd heard from her since they'd walked out of this building 40 minutes ago. Come on, sweetheart. James pulled himself to his feet, wincing at the protest from his knee. Let's go home. They made their way back through the maze of pipes and shadows, Maya's hand tight in his. The building felt different now, alive, humming, breathing. Grateful if a building could feel such a thing. James had never believed in God, not since Sarah died in that hospital bed while he held her hand and begged for a miracle that never came. But sometimes in moments like this, he felt something. A presence. A purpose. Maybe that was enough. They reached the service elevator, stepped inside. James pulled the gate closed and began cranking the manual lift. Daddy. Yeah. Those people up there, the ones you saved. Maya looked up at him. Will they know it was you? James thought about it. The surgeons who'd been able to finish their work. The nurses who didn't have to watch patients die. The families who'd get to hug their loved ones again. Probably not, he said. Does that make you sad? No, baby. He smiled, tired, worn, but real. That's not why I do it. Then why? The elevator groaned upward. Light began to filter through the shaft. Because some things are worth doing. James said, even if nobody ever knows you did them. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she squeezed his hand. Mommy would be proud of you. James's eyes burned. Yeah, he said softly. I hope so. The elevator doors opened, and Miranda Sterling was standing there. Alone, no security, no assistance. Just her in her designer suit and her perfect makeup and her $1,000 heels staring at the man she'd tried to destroy an hour ago. James stepped out, Maya behind him. For a long moment nobody spoke. The lobby was still chaotic, but different now. The lights were on, phones were ringing. People were crying with relief instead of fear. Somewhere down the hall, someone was laughing. Miranda's face was unreadable. But James had spent decades learning to read people in combat, in crisis, in those moments when masks slip and the truth shows through. And what he saw in Miranda Sterling's eyes wasn't anger. It was something else entirely. You came back, she said finally. I did. Why? James looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he saw something beneath the armor. Something tired. Something broken. Something that had been hidden so long even she might have forgotten it was there. Because this hospital has a heartbeat, he said, and I wasn't going to let it die. He paused. Not even for you. Miranda's jaw tightened. Her eyes glistened in the fluorescent light. I was wrong, she said. The words came out rough, scraped from somewhere deep inside her, like she'd never said them before. Like she didn't know how. About you. About... She stopped, swallowed. About everything. James didn't respond. He just took Maya's hand and started toward the exit. Wait. Miranda's voice cracked. Please. He stopped. Didn't turn around. I don't know how to do this, she said. Her composure was crumbling now. The mask was falling away. I don't know how to apologize. I've never been good at seeing people. Not really. Not the way you do. James turned back to face her. Why not? Miranda opened her mouth, closed it. For a moment, she looked like a lost child trying to find her way home. Because, she whispered, the last time I let myself really see someone, really let them in, they died. And I couldn't save them. The words hung in the air between them. James didn't ask who she meant. Didn't push. He just stood there holding his daughter's hand and let the silence do what words couldn't. Go home, Ms. Sterling, he said finally. Get some rest. The hospital's stable for now, but you'll need a full crew in here tomorrow to assess the damage. What about you? James looked at Maya. She was leaning against him, exhausted, struggling to keep her eyes open. "I'll figure it out," he said. "I always do." He turned and walked toward the exit. "James," he stopped. "The check will be in the mail tomorrow," Miranda said. "What I owe you. What the hospital owes you. All of it. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's a debt." Her voice was steady now, but different. Softer. "And I always pay my debts." James nodded once. Then he walked out into the Chicago night, his daughter's hand in his, leaving Miranda Sterling standing alone in the lobby of the hospital he'd just saved. The streets were dark. The heat had finally broken. A cool breeze was rolling in off Lake Michigan. "Daddy?" Maya's voice was sleepy. "Yeah, baby. Are we going to be okay?" James thought about the $63 in his account. The rent due in 5 days. The job applications he'd have to fill out tomorrow. Then, he thought about what he'd just done. The lives he'd saved. The building he'd brought back from the dead. And the look in Miranda Sterling's eyes when she'd finally seen him. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said. "We're going to be okay." For the first time in a long time, he almost believed it. The next morning came too fast. James woke up on the couch with Maya curled against his chest, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant rumble of the L train passing 3 blocks away. He lay there for a moment, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. His hands throbbed where he'd burned them on the junction box. His knee felt like someone had driven a railroad spike through it. But they were alive. They were home. And for right now, that was enough. Maya stirred. "Daddy." "I'm here, baby." "What time is it?" "Early. Go back to sleep." But she was already sitting up, rubbing her eyes, looking around the small apartment, like she was making sure it was real. "I had a dream," she said, "about the hospital, about the dark." "Yeah? You fixed it. In my dream, you fixed everything." She looked at him. "That really happened, right? It wasn't just a dream." James kissed the top of her head. "It really happened." "Good." Maya yawned. "I'm hungry." James checked the refrigerator. Half a carton of eggs. Some cheese that was questionable but probably safe. A heel of bread that was only slightly stale. He made scrambled eggs and toast, while Maya sat at the kitchen table swinging her legs and watching him work. "Daddy." "Yeah." "What are we going to do now?" "About money, I mean. About your job." James set a plate in front of her. "Don't worry about that." "But I heard you talking to Mr. Patterson last week. About the rent. About how we might have to—" "Maya." He sat down across from her. "Look at me." She looked. "I have been taking care of you since the day you were born. I took care of you when your mama got sick. I took care of you when she died. I took care of you through every hard thing that's ever happened to us." He reached across the table and took her hand. "And I'm going to keep taking care of you, no matter what. You understand?" Maya nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good. Now eat your eggs." She ate. James drank his coffee instant because they'd run out of the good stuff 2 weeks ago and tried not to think about the $63 in his account. The rent due in 4 days now. The negative balance on Maya's lunch account that the school kept sending letters about. A knock at the door made them both jump. James crossed to the door, checked the peephole. Nobody there. But when he opened it, he found an envelope on the mat. His name was written on the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. Expensive paper, the kind that cost more than his grocery budget for a week. He picked it up, closed the door, sat back down at the table. "What is it?" Maya asked. "I don't know." He opened it. Inside was a formal letter his termination confirmed. 2 weeks severance. Standard HR language that said nothing at all about 17 years of service, about the lives he'd saved, about the building he'd kept alive through everything. But beneath the typed words, someone had written a note in blue ink. I watched the security footage. I saw what you did. I saw how you did it. We need to talk. MS. And at the bottom of the envelope, there was something else. A check. James stared at the number. His hands started shaking. Daddy. Maya leaned forward, trying to see. What is it? Is it bad? James looked at his daughter, then back at the check, then at the note in Miranda Sterling's handwriting. No, sweetheart, he said slowly. I don't think it's bad at all. His phone buzzed. Unknown number, but he recognized the hospital prefix. He answered. Hello? Mr. Carter. Miranda's voice was different than it had been yesterday, softer, almost nervous. I hope I'm not calling too early. It's 7 in the morning. I know, I haven't slept. A pause. I've been watching the security footage from last night, all of it. The sub-basement, the junction box, the way you talked to your daughter while you worked. James said nothing. You told her you'd come back, Miranda continued. You promised her, and then you did something that could have killed you without hesitation. Not for money, not for recognition, just because people needed help. Is there a point to this call, Ms. Sterling? Yes. She took a breath. I need someone like you, not as maintenance, not as an employee, as something else, something I don't even have a name for yet. James looked at Maya, who was watching him with curious eyes. I'm listening. There's a problem inside my hospital, something I can't see, someone I trusted. I think they're trying to destroy everything I've built, and I need someone who knows how to look at things, really look, someone who listens when everyone else is too busy talking. And what makes you think I'd help you after everything you did? Miranda was quiet for a long moment. Because you came back, she said finally. When you had every reason not to, you came back anyway. James closed his eyes. He thought about the $63, the rent due in 4 days, the negative lunch balance, the check sitting on the table in front of him enough to cover 3 months of rent, maybe more. He thought about Maya eating her eggs, trusting him to make it okay. And he thought about Miranda Sterling, the look in her eyes when she'd mentioned someone dying, the crack in her armor she couldn't quite hide. There's a coffee shop on Michigan and Oak, he said. Meet me there at noon. Come alone. I'll be there. He hung up. Maya looked up from her plate. Was that the mean lady? Yeah. What did she want? James tucked the check into his pocket. I think she wants me to save her again. Maya considered this for a moment. Then she shrugged and went back to her eggs. You're good at that, she said matter-of-factly. At saving people. Yeah. Maya smiled. Mommy always said so. James felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 3 years starting to thaw. Let's hope so, sweetheart. Let's hope so. The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and old promises. James arrived 20 minutes early. Old habit. The kind you pick up when your life depends on knowing every exit before someone walks through the door. He chose a table in the back corner. Clear sightline to the entrance. Wall behind him. 2 exits, front door and service entrance through the kitchen. He counted the customers. 11. Mostly professionals killing time between meetings. None of them looked twice at the black man in the worn jacket and work boots. Good. At 11:47, Miranda Sterling walked in. She looked different than she had at the hospital. Smaller somehow. She wore jeans and a simple gray sweater, her hair pulled back. No heels, no armor. Just a woman trying very hard not to look like a CEO. She spotted him immediately and crossed the room with quick, nervous steps. You're early, she said. So are you. She slid into the chair across from him. Her hands were shaking. She noticed him noticing and shoved them under the table. Thank you for coming, she said. You're paying me to be here. That check you sent, that's 3 months of rent. It's what you were owed, 17 years of service. The severance they gave you was insulting." James studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way she kept glancing toward the door like she expected someone to walk through it. "You said someone's trying to destroy your hospital," he said. "Start there." Miranda took a breath. 6 months ago, we started noticing irregularities. Small things at first. Equipment failures that didn't make sense. Patient records corrupted. Key staff leaving without explanation. Corporate sabotage. That's what I thought, but then it got personal. She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. 3 weeks ago, someone sent this to every member of my board. James looked at the screen. Financial records, bank statements, transaction histories. All of them linked to offshore accounts with Miranda's name on them. "These are fake," Miranda said. "I've never seen these accounts in my life. But they're good fakes. Good enough that the board launched an internal investigation. Good enough that there are people right now, people I've worked with for years, who think I'm a criminal. You're being framed." "Yes. And whoever's doing it knows everything. My schedule, my passwords, my private meetings. They know things that only someone very close to me could know." James set the phone down. "You have a suspect." It wasn't a question. Miranda's face tightened. "I have a fear." "That's different. Tell me." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Her name is Denise Hayes. She's been my executive assistant for 10 years. She was with me before I became CEO, before I was anyone." Miranda's voice cracked. "She held my hand at my mother's funeral. She brought me soup when I forgot to eat for 3 days straight. She's the closest thing to family I have. And you think she's betraying you?" "I don't want to think that." Miranda shook her head. "But 3 months ago, she started acting different, distant, nervous. She takes calls in private now, leaves early. And last week..." She stopped, swallowed. "Last week I found her in my office at 2 in the morning. She said she was looking for a file, but my computer was open. And I never leave my computer open." "Did you confront her?" "No." Miranda's eyes were wet. "Because if I'm wrong, I destroy the only real relationship I have left. And if I'm right..." "If you're right, then everything you thought you knew about people is a lie." Miranda looked at him with something like surprise. "Yes, exactly." James understood that fear. The fear of looking at someone you loved and seeing a stranger looking back. He'd felt it himself in those last weeks before Sarah died, when she'd started keeping secrets, hiding how much pain she was in because she didn't want to burden him. "Why me?" he asked. "You have security, lawyers, private investigators who cost more per hour than I made in a week. Why bring in a maintenance man?" "Because you see things." Miranda met his eyes. "You said it yourself. You listen when nobody else does. You knew exactly what was wrong with my hospital when a team of engineers couldn't figure it out. You looked at my daughter..." She stopped. "You looked at Maya and saw that she was scared before I even noticed she was in the room." "I don't need someone who can read a spreadsheet," she continued. "I need someone who can read people, and everyone I've met in the last 10 years has been trying to sell me something, use me for something, take something from me. But you..." She shook her head. "You came back to save a building full of people who never knew your name. You did it for nothing." "That's not something you can fake." James was quiet for a long moment. "I'll pay you," Miranda said. "Whatever you want. Name your price." "I don't want your money." "Then what do you want?" James thought about Maya, the negative lunch balance, the permission slips he couldn't afford to sign, the surgery she needed on her teeth that he'd been putting off for 2 years because he couldn't afford the copay. "Benefits," he said. "Health insurance, dental, the kind that covers everything without asking questions." Miranda blinked. "That's it." "My daughter needs braces, and I haven't been to a doctor in 6 years because I couldn't afford the visit." Something shifted in Miranda's face, a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. "Done," she said. What else? Flexible hours. I pick up Maya from school at 3:15. That's non-negotiable. Understood. And one more thing. James leaned forward. If I find out Denise is innocent, you don't fire her. You don't punish her. You apologize. And you mean it. Miranda's jaw tightened. And if she's guilty, then I'll handle it my way. For a long moment, Miranda just looked at him. Then slowly, she extended her hand across the table. We have a deal, Mr. Carter. James shook it. Her grip was stronger than he expected. Call me James. Then call me Miranda. She almost smiled. Nobody does anymore. The first week was observation. Miranda gave James a badge, a real one this time, with clearance that let him move through the hospital like a ghost. He came in early, stayed late, watched everything. Denise Hayes was exactly what Miranda had described. Professional. Efficient. Devoted. She anticipated Miranda's needs before Miranda knew she had them. She remembered everyone's birthday. She knew which board members took their coffee black and which ones were secretly in recovery. She was perfect. Too perfect. James noticed it on the third day. The way Denise's eyes tracked Miranda's movements, not with loyalty, but with calculation. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when she thought no one was watching. The way she always positioned herself between Miranda and the door. He'd seen that behavior before. In combat. In men who were planning something and waiting for the right moment. On Friday afternoon, James found himself in the hospital cafeteria eating a sandwich he'd brought from home when a voice interrupted his thoughts. You're the new guy. He looked up. Denise Hayes stood beside his table, coffee cup in hand, smile perfectly calibrated. I'm sorry. Everyone's talking about you. The maintenance man who saved the hospital. The one Miranda brought back after she fired him. Denise sat down across from him without asking. That's quite a story. It's not much of a story. Oh, I think it is. Denise sipped her coffee. I've worked here for 10 years. I've seen a lot of people come and go, but I've never seen Miranda Sterling apologize to anyone. And I've certainly never seen her give someone a job with a blank check for salary. She told you about that. Miranda tells me everything. Denise's smile didn't waver. Or at least she used to. James kept his face neutral. What's that supposed to mean? It means things have changed around here. Ever since that night, the blackout, she's been different. Paranoid. Looking at everyone like they might be hiding something. Denise leaned forward. Including me. Are you? Am I hiding something? For a fraction of a second so brief that most people would have missed it. Something flickered across Denise's face. Fear, anger, James couldn't tell. Couldn't. Then it was gone. I'm hiding the same thing everyone hides, Denise said. The parts of myself that aren't useful. The feelings that don't fit the job description. The dreams I gave up to be here. She stood. Aren't you? She walked away before James could answer. He watched her go, noting the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hand as she gripped her coffee cup. She was hiding something. The question was what? That evening, James followed her. Denise left the hospital at 6:47 early for her, according to the logs James had pulled. She walked 3 blocks to a parking garage, drove north to Lincoln Park, and parked outside a brownstone that definitely didn't match her salary. James watched from across the street as she went inside. 20 minutes later, she came out with a man. Gray suit, silver watch, the kind of face that looked like it had never been punched but deserved to be. They talked for 4 minutes. Denise handed him something, a USB drive small enough to fit in a palm. The man handed her an envelope. Then they went separate directions like they'd never met at all. James took pictures of everything. That night he showed them to Miranda. She sat in her home office, a converted bedroom in her penthouse that looked more like a bunker than a workspace, and stared at the photos without speaking. The man is Richard Cole, James said. Executive VP at Lakeside Medical Group. Your competitors. Miranda's face went pale. Lakeside tried to buy us out last year. I turned them down. Looks like they found another way in. And Denise. Miranda's voice broke. 10 years. 10 years and she's been... We don't know how long. Could be recent. Could be from the beginning. Miranda looked up at him. Her eyes were wet. How did I not see this? You trusted her. That's not a weakness. It feels like one. James pulled a chair over and sat across from her, not as an employee, not as an investigator, just as someone who understood what it felt like to be betrayed by the people you loved most. When my wife was dying, he said quietly, I missed the signs. She'd been sick for months, tired all the time, losing weight, complaining about stomach pain. I told her it was stress, told her to take it easy. Miranda looked at him. By the time we got to the hospital, the cancer had spread everywhere. The doctor said even if we'd caught it earlier, it might not have mattered, but I'll never know for sure. He leaned forward. I've spent every day since wondering if I could have saved her, if I'd just been paying attention. James. You're not stupid, Miranda. You're not weak. You just made the mistake of believing that someone who held your hand at a funeral was incapable of stabbing you in the back. He held her gaze. That's human. That's normal. The only people who don't make that mistake are the ones who never trust anyone at all. Miranda wiped her eyes. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to make you angry. Her head snapped up. What? Denise didn't just betray you. She weaponized your trust. She used your mother's death, your loneliness, your need for connection. She used all of it against you. James stood. And if you let yourself collapse into grief right now, she wins. Miranda stared at him for a long moment. Then something shifted in her face. The tears dried, the jaw set. The CEO came back. What do you need? She asked. Access to her personnel file, her phone records, and a list of everyone she's met with in the last 6 months. Done. And one more thing. James hesitated. Your daughter, Sophie, where is she right now? Miranda's face went rigid. At home, with the nanny. Why? Because if Denise is working with Lakeside, this isn't just about money, it's about leverage. James kept his voice steady. And the best leverage against a mother. Miranda shot to her feet. No, don't even say it. I'm not saying they're planning anything. I'm saying we need to be careful. Sophie is off limits. She's completely off limits. Then let me protect her. James held up his hands. Not full time. Just let me know where she is, who she's with. I have a daughter too. I know what it feels like to wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if she's safe. Miranda's breathing was ragged. The CEO armor had cracked again. Underneath was just a mother terrified. Okay, she whispered. Okay, just please. Please don't let anything happen to her. I won't, James said. That's a promise. The next afternoon, James's phone rang. Mr. Carter? Miranda's voice was tight controlled, but he could hear the panic underneath. I need your help. What's wrong? Sophie's nanny quit, just walked out. No notice, no explanation. And I'm stuck in a board meeting that I can't leave. And Sophie's school just called and said she's waiting to be picked up, and I don't have anyone else to... I'll get her. Silence. Then, you don't have to. I'm already out. Text me the address. 30 seconds later, his phone buzzed with a location. James picked up Maya from school first, explaining quickly that they had an errand to run, then drove to Sophie's school on the north side. Sophie Sterling was 10 years old with dark hair and serious eyes, and a way of looking at people like she was trying to figure out if they were worth trusting. She reminded James of her mother. You're the janitor, Sophie said when she climbed into his car. Used to be. Mom said you saved the hospital. Just fix the lights. Sophie studied him in the rearview mirror. She also said you were kind. That's not something she usually says about people. James didn't know how to respond to that. He just drove. When they got to Sterling Medical, Maya was waiting in his small office on the operations floor, the room that had become his unofficial headquarters. She looked up when Sophie walked in. For a moment, the two girls just stared at each other. Then Maya smiled. "Want to see my drawings?" Sophie shrugged. "Okay." Within 15 minutes, they were sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by crayons and paper, arguing about whether dragons could beat dinosaurs in a fight. "Dragons have fire," Maya insisted. "But dinosaurs are real," Sophie countered. "Real always beats made up." "My dad's real and he beats made up stuff all the time." Sophie considered this. "What does that mean?" "It means he fixes things that people think can't be fixed. He made a building come back to life. He's like a wizard but for pipes." Miranda appeared in the doorway an hour later. She stood there for a long moment watching her daughter laugh with the janitor's kid. James came to stand beside her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Just doing my job." "No," she shook her head. "This is more than that. Sophie doesn't—" Her voice caught. "She doesn't laugh like that. Not with anyone." James watched the girls. "They're good for each other. Maya needs a friend who isn't afraid of hard things. And Sophie needs someone who doesn't see her as a CEO's daughter." "Yeah." Miranda was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you want to stay for dinner?" James looked at her. "I was going to order something for me and Sophie," she said. "But if you and Maya want to join us—" She looked almost nervous, like she was asking a question that had more weight than she wanted to admit. James thought about saying no, about keeping the boundaries clear. Employee and employer. Nothing more. But Maya was laughing. Really laughing. The way she used to before her mother died. "Sure," he said. "We'll stay." They ordered Chinese food and ate it in Miranda's office because the conference room felt too formal and neither of them wanted to stop the girls from playing. Miranda watched James help Maya with her chopsticks, watched the patience in his hands, the gentleness. "You're good with her," she said. "She's easy to be good with." "That's not true. Kids are complicated." Miranda picked at her low mane. "Sophie's complicated." "All kids are complicated. That's what makes them kids." Miranda was quiet for a moment. Then, "She hasn't been the same since her father left." James looked up. "I didn't know you were married." "Divorced. 4 years ago." Miranda's voice was flat, rehearsed the tone of someone who'd told this story so many times it had lost its edges. "He decided he wanted a simpler life, a younger wife, a fresh start somewhere that didn't remind him of his failures." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not." But something flickered across her face. "He calls Sophie once a month. If she's lucky. Sends checks when he remembers. She pretends it doesn't hurt." "Does it?" "Everything hurts when you're a kid. You just learn to hide it better as you get older." James thought about Maya, the way she held it together at her mother's funeral, the way she never asked for things she knew he couldn't afford. "Yeah," he said. "I guess you do." They sat in comfortable silence while the girls played. The city hummed outside the windows. For a few hours there were no board meetings, no betrayals, no billion-dollar conspiracies hanging in the balance. Just two broken people trying to protect the ones they loved. Later, after James had carried a sleeping Maya to the car, Miranda walked him to the lobby. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked. "Yeah, I've got a lead on one of Denise's contacts. Should have something solid by end of week." Miranda nodded, but she didn't move toward the elevator. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking at him like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. "What?" James asked. "I was just thinking." She shook her head. "Stupid thought." "Tell me anyway." Miranda took a breath. "I was thinking that I've known you for 2 weeks, and in that time you've done more for me for Sophie than most people have done in years. You've been kind without wanting anything, honest without being cruel, and I keep waiting for the catch. There's no catch. That's what scares me." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too many lies. "Because everyone has a catch, James. Everyone wants something." He stepped closer. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. "What I want," he said slowly, "is for my daughter to grow up in a world where people like you don't have to be afraid all the time, where trust isn't a weakness, where doing the right thing actually matters." He shrugged. "That's it. That's the catch." Miranda stared at him, and for just a moment, so brief he almost missed it, her armor fell away completely. Underneath was something raw, something real. "Nobody talks like that anymore," she whispered. "Maybe that's the problem." She almost smiled. Almost. "Good night, James." "Good night, Miranda." He walked out into the night, Maya sleeping against his shoulder, and didn't look back, but he felt her watching him until the doors closed. 2 weeks passed. James built his case slowly, methodically, the way you disarm a bomb. One wire at a time, knowing that one wrong move could blow everything apart. Denise was good. She covered her tracks with the precision of someone who'd been doing this for years. But she wasn't perfect. Nobody was. He found the cracks. A payment she'd forgotten to delete. A meeting she'd logged under the wrong name. A text message she'd sent from her work phone instead of her burner. The evidence was mounting. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Something James hadn't expected. Maya and Sophie became inseparable. It started with playdates after school. Then sleepovers on weekends. Then phone calls every night, the girls talking for hours about everything and nothing the way kids do when they found someone who finally understands them. "She's different," Maya told James one night while he was tucking her into bed. "Sophie, I mean." "Different how?" "She's sad. Like, deep down sad. The kind you can't see unless you're looking." Maya pulled her blanket up to her chin. "Like I was after Mommy died." James felt his throat tighten. "And now she laughs more, because of me." Maya smiled. "I make her laugh, Daddy, just like you make me laugh." "That's a good thing, baby." "I know." Maya's eyes were serious. "That's why I can't let anything bad happen to her. She's my best friend." James kissed her forehead. "Nothing bad's going to happen. I promise." "Pinky promise." He held out his pinky. She wrapped hers around it. "Pinky promise." But even as he said the words, James felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Because the evidence he was gathering pointed to something bigger than corporate sabotage, something that went deeper than he'd imagined, and he was running out of time. The break came on a Thursday night. James was in his office at the hospital reviewing security footage for the 100th time when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Carter?" "Mr. Carter." The voice was unfamiliar. Female. Cold. "I think we should talk." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you're looking for, and someone who can give it to you." A pause. "For a price?" James's jaw tightened. "I'm listening." "Denise Hayes is a means to an end. She's not the mastermind. She's the puppet. And the person pulling her strings is much closer to Miranda than you think." "Then tell me who." "Meet me tomorrow night, 9 p.m. The old warehouse on a Pier 47 at Navy Pier. Come alone." Another pause. "I'll give you everything you need." The line went dead. James stared at his phone. Every instinct he had was screaming trap. The isolated location. The anonymous caller. The promise of easy answers. But if there was even a chance she was telling the truth. He made a decision. That night he told Miranda about the call. Showed her the number. Laid out the risks. "It's too dangerous," she said immediately. "You can't go alone." "I'm not asking for permission." "James, if there's someone else involved, someone inside your circle, we need to know. And this might be our only chance to find out." Miranda's face was tight with fear. "Then let me send security with you. Let me—" She said, "Come alone. If I show up with backup, she disappears. We lose the lead." "And if it's a trap?" James smiled grimly. "Then I guess you'll need to find a new janitor." "Don't." Miranda grabbed his arm. Her grip was fierce. "Don't joke about that. Don't you dare joke about that." He looked at her. Really looked. And what he saw surprised him. Fear. Not for her hospital. Not for her reputation. For him. "I'll be careful," he said softly. "That's not good enough. It's all I've got." She didn't let go. Her eyes were searching his face, looking for something she couldn't name. "If something happens to you," she said, "Maya loses her father. Sophie loses the only person who's made her smile in months. And I—" She stopped. "You what?" James asked. Miranda's voice was barely a whisper. "I lose the only person who's ever seen me. Really seen me." She shook her head. "And I can't do this alone, James. Not anymore." He covered her hand with his, gently, carefully, like he was holding something precious. "You're not alone," he said. "And you won't be. I promise." She looked at him with eyes that wanted to believe, but didn't know how. "I'm going to hold you to that," she said. "I'm counting on it." The night before the meeting, James sat on Maya's bed and watched her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so unaware of the danger circling around them. He'd spent his whole life trying to protect her from the darkness in the world, and now he was about to walk straight into it. "Daddy." Her voice was sleepy, confused. "Hey, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." "Are you okay?" She rubbed her eyes. "You look worried." James smiled. "Just thinking." "About what?" He was quiet for a moment. "About how much I love you, and how there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do to keep you safe." Maya reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were so small, so trusting. "I know, Daddy." Her voice was soft. "You're the strongest person I know. You always come back." He squeezed her hand. "Yeah, I do. Promise. Promise." She smiled sleepily and closed her eyes. Within minutes she was breathing deep and slow. James sat there for a long time, holding his daughter's hand in the darkness. Tomorrow he would walk into the unknown. Tonight he held on to the only thing that mattered. Pier 47 smelled like rust and lake water and bad decisions. James arrived at 8:43, early again. He walked the perimeter twice, checking exits, counting shadows, listening to the silence. The warehouse was old. Abandoned for at least a decade if the broken windows and graffiti were any indication. No cars in the lot. No movement behind the shattered glass. He didn't like it. But he was here now. No point in turning back. At 8:56, headlights swept across the lot. A black sedan pulled up. Expensive, tinted windows. The kind of car that belonged in a corporate garage, not a forgotten dock. The door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s, sharp features, gray blazer over black slacks. She moved with the confidence of someone who was used to being in control. "Mr. Carter." Her voice echoed across the empty lot. "Thank you for coming." James stayed where he was. "You have a name. You can call me Catherine. That's your real name. Does it matter?" James studied her face. No nervousness, no fear. She wasn't a messenger. She was a player. "You said you had information," he said. "Talk." Catherine smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Denise Hayes has been feeding information to Lakeside Medical for 3 years, but she's not doing it for money." Catherine took a step closer. "She's doing it because someone promised her something she wanted more than cash." "What?" "Miranda's job." James felt his jaw tighten. "Denise believes she deserves to be CEO," Catherine continued. "She was there before Miranda. She did the work, made the sacrifices, built the systems that keep that hospital running. And then Miranda waltzed in younger, prettier, better connected, and took everything Denise had been building toward. So this is revenge. This is justice. At least that's how Denise sees it." Catherine's smile faded. "But here's what Denise doesn't know. The people she's working with, they don't plan to make her CEO. They plan to destroy Sterling Medical completely, buy the pieces for pennies on the dollar, and once the hospital falls, Denise becomes a liability, a loose end. You're saying she's being played. I'm saying everyone is being played. Catherine tilted her head. Including you. What's that supposed to mean? You think Miranda Sterling hired you because you're good at reading people? Catherine laughed. She hired you because you're disposable. A maintenance man with no connections, no power, no one who would miss him if he disappeared. James didn't flinch. Keep talking. When this is over, when Denise is exposed and Lakeside backs off, Miranda will need someone to blame for how long it took. Someone who missed the signs. Someone who failed to protect her. Catherine's eyes were cold. Who do you think that will be? James was quiet for a long moment. You don't know her, he said finally. I know women like her. I've worked with them my entire career. They use people, James. They chew them up and spit them out, and they never, ever take responsibility for their own failures. Why are you telling me this? Catherine's expression shifted. Something almost human flickered across her face. Because I was Denise once. Loyal, devoted, willing to do anything for someone who didn't deserve it. Her voice hardened. And when I finally opened my eyes, it was almost too late. So what do you want? Catherine reached into her blazer and pulled out a USB drive. This contains everything. Bank records, communications, the full paper trail linking Denise to Lakeside. She held it out. It also contains proof that Miranda knew about the security vulnerabilities in her hospital for months and did nothing. James didn't take the drive. Why would you give this to me? Because I want you to understand what you're dealing with. Miranda Sterling isn't some innocent victim caught in a corporate conspiracy. She's a woman who built her empire on the backs of people she considered beneath her. Catherine's voice dropped. People like you. People like me. People like Denise. She held out the drive again. Take it, use it, or don't. But don't say I didn't warn you. James looked at the drive, then at Catherine, then at the darkness surrounding them. Something wasn't right. Who sent you? He asked. Catherine's expression flickered, just for a second, but James caught it. I told you, I'm someone who knows what you're looking for. That's not what I asked. He took a step back. Who sent you? Silence. And then from somewhere behind the warehouse, the sound of footsteps. Multiple. Heavy. Moving fast. James didn't wait. He was running before his brain caught up with his body. Instinct took over, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 4 tours in Afghanistan. He cut left away from the footsteps toward the chain-link fence at the edge of the lot. Stop him! Catherine's voice rang out. More footsteps. Closer now. At least 3 men, maybe 4. James hit the fence and climbed. His bad knee screamed in protest. He ignored it. Adrenaline was a hell of a painkiller. He dropped to the other side and kept running. Behind him, someone was cursing. Someone else was on a phone calling for backup. He didn't look back. 3 blocks later, he ducked into an alley and pressed himself against the wall, breathing hard. His phone buzzed. Miranda. He answered, gasping. Yeah. James. Are you okay? I've been trying to reach you for an hour. I'm fine. He was wheezing. Change of plans. The meeting was a setup. What? They tried to grab me. I got out. But listen to me. Whatever's happening, it's bigger than Denise. There are people involved that we don't know about yet. Where are you? Doesn't matter. What matters is Sophie. Where is she right now? Home. With the security team. Why? Keep her there. Don't let her go anywhere. Don't let anyone you don't trust within 100 feet of her. James, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He took a breath. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't move until I get there. He hung up and started running again. Miranda was pacing when he arrived, She'd sent the security team to sweep the building twice. Sophie was in her room confused and frightened, asking questions that Miranda couldn't answer. The moment James walked through the door, Miranda crossed the room and grabbed his shoulders. What the hell happened? He told her everything. Catherine, the USB drive, the ambush, the warning about being disposable. Miranda's face went pale. She said I was using you. She said a lot of things. Most of it was probably designed to turn me against you. But you're not sure. James looked at her. Really looked. The fear in her eyes was real. The concern was real. He'd spent his whole life reading people in combat and crisis, in those moments when masks slip and the truth shows through. And everything in him said that Miranda Sterling, for all her flaws, was not the monster Catherine had described. I'm sure, he said. Miranda's breath caught. How can you be? Because you came to me. Not the other way around. Because when your hospital went dark and your whole life was on the line, you called back the janitor you'd just humiliated. He held her gaze. Because you let your daughter play with mine. Because you asked me to stay for dinner. He shook his head. People who use other people don't do that. They don't take risks. They don't show vulnerability. And they definitely don't let their guards down around someone who has nothing to offer them. Miranda's eyes glistened. I don't know how to... You don't have to say anything. James put his hands on her shoulders. Steady. Grounding. Right now, we need to focus. Someone set that trap tonight. Someone who knew I was investigating Denise. Someone who wanted to either grab me or scare me off. Who? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. That night, James didn't sleep. He went through everything. Every file, every record, every piece of evidence he'd gathered over the past month. And then he went through it again, looking for connections he'd missed. At 3 a.m, he found it. A name, buried in Denise's phone records. A number she'd called 12 times in the past 2 weeks. The calls were short, never more than 90 seconds, but they were consistent. Regular. James traced the number to a burner phone. Dead end. But the burner had been purchased at a convenience store in Wicker Park, and that store had security cameras. At 6 a.m., James was at the store showing his badge and asking to see the footage. The clerk was suspicious at first, but $100 and a story about a missing daughter changed his mind. James watched 3 hours of footage before he found it. A woman, mid-40s, sharp features, gray blazer, Catherine. But she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her at the counter. Tall, silver watch, the kind of face that looked like it had never been punched but deserved to be. Richard Cole, the Lakeside executive. James had his connection. He called Miranda. I know who Catherine is, he said, and I know who she's working for. Who? Richard Cole. He's running the whole thing. Denise, the fake accounts, the setup at the pier, all of it traces back to him. Miranda was quiet for a long moment. Richard was my mother's protege, she said finally. He worked at Sterling Medical for 15 years before he left for Lakeside. Then he knows your systems, your weaknesses, everything. He knows me. Miranda's voice was hollow. He was at my mother's funeral. He gave the eulogy. James felt the weight of that settle over him. Another betrayal. Another person she'd trusted who had turned out to be poison. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be. Her voice hardened. Just stop him. I will, but I need your help. What do you need? A trap. Something that will force Denise to make a move. Something that will bring Richard out of the shadows. Miranda was quiet, thinking. The board meeting, she said finally. It's in 3 days. I'm supposed to present our quarterly projections. If Denise thinks that's her chance to expose me, she'll move, and Richard will be watching. Can you do it? Act normal, smile at Denise. Pretend you don't know anything. I don't know if I can do that. You can. James's voice was firm. You've been doing it your whole life. The silence stretched between them. That's not a compliment, Miranda said quietly. No, it's not. He paused. But right now, it's what's going to save your hospital. The next 3 days were the longest of James's life. He watched. He waited. He prepared. The first thing he did was move Maya and Sophie to a safe house outside the city, a cabin near Lake Geneva that belonged to a veteran buddy who owed him a favor from their second tour together. The girls didn't understand why they had to leave, but they trusted their fathers. Both of them. Is something bad happening? Maya asked when James tucked her into the unfamiliar bed. Something complicated is happening, he said. But I'm going to fix it. Like you fixed the building. Something like that. She looked at him with those big brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and James felt his heart crack open the way it always did when his daughter saw straight through him. Are you scared, Daddy? James thought about lying, about telling her everything was fine, that there was nothing to worry about, that the world was safe and good and people didn't hurt each other for money and power. But he'd never lied to his daughter. He wasn't going to start now. A little, he admitted. But that's okay. Being scared just means you care about what happens. What happens if you don't fix it? Then I'll find another way. I always do. Maya reached out and took his hand. Mommy used to say that. She said you never gave up, even when things were really hard. James felt his throat tighten. Your mama was smarter than me. She also said you were the best person she ever knew. Maya squeezed his fingers. I think she was right. James leaned down and kissed her forehead. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Daddy. She smiled sleepily. Come back soon. I will. I promise. He drove back to Chicago with the weight of that promise pressing down on his chest like a stone. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. At 1:47, James took his position in the security center, a small room on the operations floor, with feeds from every camera in the building. He had 3 monitors running, tracking every entrance, every exit, every hallway that led to the boardroom. Miranda was already seated at the conference table reviewing her notes. She looked calm, professional, every inch the CEO. Only James knew about the tremor in her hands that morning, the way she'd gripped her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Denise sat 3 chairs to Miranda's left, tablet open, stylus ready, the perfect assistant. James watched her face on the monitor, looking for cracks, looking for tells. At 2:03, the meeting began. Miranda presented the quarterly projections. Revenue was up. Market share was expanding. The new cardiac wing was ahead of schedule. Everything looked perfect. At 2:17, her phone buzzed. Miranda glanced at it. Her expression didn't change, but James saw her shoulders tighten, just barely. If you'll excuse me for just a moment, she said to the board. I need to take this. She stepped out of the room. James watched Denise. The moment Miranda left, something shifted. Denise's fingers moved across her tablet faster, more urgent. She was typing something. Then she stood. I need to use the restroom, she announced to no one in particular. She walked out of the boardroom, turned left, toward the executive offices. Not the restroom. James was already moving. He caught up to her in the hallway outside Miranda's private office. She had her hand on the door handle. Denise? She froze. Going somewhere? Denise turned slowly. Her face was a mask of confusion, too perfect, too rehearsed. Mr. Carter, I forgot something in Miranda's office. A file. What file? Quarterly reports. She asked me to grab them earlier. The quarterly reports are in the boardroom. I watched you pull them up on your tablet 10 minutes ago. Denise's mask cracked, just for a second, but it was enough. I don't know what you're implying, she said. I'm not implying anything. James stepped closer. I'm telling you that I know Denise. I know about Richard Cole. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about the USB drives you've been using to copy Miranda's files. Her face went white. I have no idea what you're talking about. Then you won't mind if I check your bag. Denise's hand moved toward her purse. Instinctive. Protective. That's what I thought. James pulled out his phone. I have security on standby. Federal agents, too. You can either come with me quietly, or we can do this the hard way. Denise's eyes darted left-right, looking for an escape. There wasn't one. You don't understand, she said. Her voice was shaking now. You don't understand what she did to me. Then tell me. I gave her everything. Denise's composure shattered. Tears streamed down her face. 15 years. 15 years I built this hospital. I was here when it was nothing, when her mother was running it into the ground. I saved it. I made it profitable. I created the systems, hired the staff, built the relationships that turned this place into what it is. She was crying openly now, her whole body trembling. And when her mother died, I finally thought, you thought you'd take over. I deserve to take over. Denise's voice rose to a scream. But then she came back. Her precious daughter. The one who'd been off playing socialite while I was working 18-hour days. And suddenly, I was invisible again. A secretary. An assistant. Someone to fetch coffee and manage calendars while she took credit for everything I built. James watched her fall apart. Part of him understood. Part of him had felt that same rage, the fury of being overlooked, undervalued, erased. But understanding wasn't the same as excusing. So you sold her out, he said. I took what I was owed. Denise wiped her face with the back of her hand. Richard promised me. He said when Lakeside took over, I'd finally get what I deserved. I'd finally be seen. Richard lied to you. That's not true. I have proof. James kept his voice cold steady. He doesn't want you to be CEO. He wants Sterling Medical destroyed, liquidated, sold for parts. And once that happens, you become a problem, a witness, someone who knows too much. Denise's face contorted. That's not he wouldn't. You were never going to get what you wanted, Denise. You were just a tool. James took another step toward her. And tools get thrown away when they're no longer useful. For a long moment, Denise just stood there, broken, defeated. Then her hand moved. The gun came from nowhere. Small, silver, hidden in her purse. She raised it with shaking hands and pointed it at James's chest. You're lying, she whispered. You're trying to trick me. James didn't move, didn't flinch. Put the gun down, Denise. I can't go to prison. Her voice cracked. I can't. I won't. I've worked too hard. I've given too much. I can't. You don't have to shoot anyone. Just put the gun down and we'll talk. There's nothing to talk about. She was sobbing now, the gun trembling in her grip. It's over. Everything is over. Everything I worked for. Everything I sacrificed. Gone. All of it. It's not over. James took a slow step forward. You made mistakes. Bad ones. But you can still do the right thing. You can help us take down Richard. You can tell the truth. The truth doesn't matter. Denise's voice was hollow. It never mattered. Not for people like me. It matters to me. Another step. And it matters to the people you hurt. Miranda trusted you. She loved you. James's voice softened. And yeah, maybe she didn't see you the way you wanted to be seen. But that doesn't justify this. That doesn't justify any of this. Denise's hand was shaking so badly the gun was almost bouncing. I just wanted to matter, she whispered. I just wanted someone to see me. I see you, Denise. James was close now. Close enough to touch the barrel. I see a woman who worked her whole life for something and never got the recognition she deserved. I see someone who made a terrible choice because she was hurt and angry and alone. He reached out slowly, gently. But I also see someone who can still make this right. It's not too late. It's never too late. Denise looked at him. Her eyes were red hollow. And then, slowly, her hand lowered. James took the gun, eased it from her grip, held her as she collapsed against him, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "I know," James said quietly. "I know." The federal agents arrived 20 minutes later. They took Denise into custody gently at James's insistence. She didn't resist, didn't fight, just walked between them with empty eyes and slumped shoulders. James watched her go, feeling something complicated twist in his chest. Relief, sadness, the hollow ache of victory that came at too high a price. "Mr. Carter," he turned. Agent Morrison, the lead investigator James had been coordinating with for the past week, stood behind him, tablet in hand. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Richard Cole." Morrison's face was grim. "He's gone. Left the country 3 hours ago. Private jet to the Caymans." James felt his jaw tighten. So he knew. He knew something was happening. "We've got surveillance footage of him clearing out his office at Lakeside yesterday afternoon. He moved fast." "Can you get him back?" "We're working on it, but the Caymans don't have an extradition treaty. It could take months, years maybe." James closed his eyes. He thought about Miranda, about the look on her face when she learned that the man who'd destroyed her hospital, who'd weaponized her trust, and tried to take everything she'd built, was going to walk free. "There's got to be something," he said. "There might be." Morrison lowered his voice. "Denise is talking. A lot. She's got names, dates, account numbers, everything we need to build a case. But more importantly, she's got something Cole doesn't know she has." "What?" "Insurance." Morrison almost smiled. Turns out Denise didn't trust Cole any more than he trusted her. She's been keeping copies of everything, every communication, every transaction, every order he ever gave her. James felt something shift in his chest. That's enough to bring him back. That's enough to freeze every asset he has, every account, every investment. Morrison's smile widened. The Caymans might not extradite, but they're real particular about money. When Cole's accounts get flagged for international fraud, he's going to find out real fast that Paradise has limits. How long? Week, maybe 2. Morrison extended his hand. "You did good work, Mr. Carter. We couldn't have done this without you." James shook it. "Just doing my job." "That's not what I heard." Morrison glanced toward the boardroom where Miranda was still fielding questions from shell-shocked board members. "I heard you were doing a lot more than your job." James didn't respond. He just turned and walked toward the woman who was waiting for him. Miranda was sitting alone when he found her. The boardroom had emptied. The emergency board meeting was over. The official statement had been drafted, reviewed, and distributed to every major news outlet in Chicago. Sterling Medical Center had been the target of a coordinated attack by a rival organization. The threat had been neutralized. The hospital was safe. That was the story they were telling. The truth was more complicated. It always was. "Hey," James said. Miranda looked up. Her eyes were red. Her makeup was smeared. She looked nothing like the CEO who'd ripped his badge off 6 weeks ago. She looked human. "Hey," she said. James sat down across from her, the same chair Denise had occupied an hour ago. "How are you doing?" Miranda laughed. It was a broken sound. "I don't know how to answer that." She shook her head. 10 years. 10 years and I never saw it. She was right there, James, right next to me, every day. And I had no idea. Nobody did. I should have. Miranda's voice cracked. I should have paid attention. I should have... Stop. She looked at him. You can't do this to yourself, James said. You can't spend the rest of your life wondering what you missed, what you should have seen, what you could have done differently. He leaned forward. Trust me, I know. I spent 3 years doing exactly that after Sarah died, and all it did was eat me alive. Miranda wiped her eyes. How did you stop? I didn't, not completely. James's voice was quiet. But I learned to live with it. I learned that some things are out of our control, that we can't protect everyone, that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. He reached across the table and took her hand, and I learned that the only way through it is forward, one day at a time, one step at a time, until the weight gets a little lighter and the darkness gets a little smaller. Miranda looked at their intertwined fingers. Her hand was trembling. "I don't know if I can do that," she whispered. "You can. You're the strongest person I know." "I don't feel strong." "Nobody does. Not really." James squeezed her hand. "But strength isn't about feeling strong. It's about getting up when you want to stay down. It's about taking the next step when you can't see where you're going. It's about holding on when everything in you wants to let go." He smiled, tired, worn, but real. "You've been doing that your whole life, Miranda. You just didn't know it." She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through his. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "For staying. For not giving up on me when everyone else would have." James felt his heart swell in his chest, a feeling he'd almost forgotten. A feeling he'd thought died with Sarah. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "That's a promise." "I know." Miranda almost smiled. "You don't break your promises." "No, I don't." They sat there for a long time, holding hands across the table, not speaking. The building hummed around them. The city moved outside the windows. And somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed the sound of Chicago alive and chaotic and beautiful. "James, yeah, what happens now?" He thought about it. The investigation, the press coverage, the months of testimony and depositions and legal battles that lay ahead. "Now we rebuild," he said. "Clean, transparent, the way it should have been from the beginning." "And you?" He looked at her. "What do you mean? I mean..." She hesitated. "This is over. Denise is gone. Richard is running. You did what I hired you to do." Her voice dropped. "Are you leaving?" James was quiet for a moment. He thought about the job, the case, the boundaries he'd told himself he would maintain. And then he thought about Maya and Sophie laughing together at the cabin, about the way Miranda looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, about the life he'd started to build here, a life he hadn't expected, hadn't planned for, hadn't known he needed. "No," he said. "I'm not leaving." Miranda's breath caught. "Why not?" "Because you still need someone who sees you, really sees you." He shrugged. "And because my daughter has finally found a friend. I'm not going to take that away from her." "That's it." "Those are your reasons." James met her eyes. "Those are the reasons I'm willing to say out loud." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them felt charged electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Then, Miranda leaned across the table and kissed him. It was soft, gentle, uncertain. The kind of kiss that asked a question instead of making a demand. When she pulled back, James was looking at her with something in his eyes she couldn't name. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay what?" "Okay. I think we're going to be all right." 2 weeks later, Richard Cole's assets were frozen. The federal investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Denise's evidence was comprehensive, damning irrefutable. Every shell company Cole had used, every bribe he'd paid, every law he'd broken in his quest to destroy Miranda Sterling. The Cayman authorities, motivated by a combination of international pressure and the threat of banking sanctions, revoked his residency permit. He was arrested at the airport in Grand Cayman, trying to board a flight to Venezuela. James watched the footage on the news, Cole in handcuffs, being led through a crowd of reporters, his face a mask of disbelief. He'd spent his whole life believing he was untouchable, believing that money and power could protect him from anything. He was wrong. Turn it off. James looked up. Miranda was standing in the doorway of his office, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. You don't want to see this. I've seen enough. She crossed the room and handed him a cup. Besides, I have better things to think about. Like what? Like the fact that our daughters are coming home tomorrow. Miranda smiled a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. And like the fact that Sophie hasn't stopped talking about Maya for 2 weeks straight. James felt something warm spread through his chest. She's a good kid. She is now. Miranda sat down across from him. Before you came along, she was angry, withdrawn. She'd stopped trusting people, stopped believing that anyone would stay. And now she's planning a sleepover. Miranda laughed. She wants to build a fort in the living room and watch movies all night and eat so much popcorn we have to roll her to bed. Sounds like Maya's influence. Sounds like yours. James looked at her. Really looked. The woman sitting across from him wasn't the same person who'd ripped his badge off 6 weeks ago. That woman had been cold, controlled, terrified of letting anyone see behind the mask. This woman was softer, more open, still strong, stronger than anyone he'd ever known, but willing to show the cracks, willing to be human. You're different, he said. So are you. How? Miranda thought about it. When I first met you, you were angry. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that burns slow and never goes out. She tilted her head. But now, it's like the fire's still there, but it's warming things instead of burning them down. James was quiet for a moment. Sarah used to say that, he said finally. She said I had a fire inside me. Said it was the thing she loved most about me, and the thing that scared her most. He looked down at his coffee. After she died, I thought the fire went out. I thought I'd never feel anything that strong again. And now? James looked up, met Miranda's eyes. Now I'm not so sure. The silence between them stretched comfortable, warm, full of possibility. Then Miranda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her face changed. What is it? James asked. The board. Miranda's voice was tight. They want to meet. Tomorrow morning. About what? About me. She set down her phone. About whether I should still be CEO. James felt his jaw tighten. After everything you've been through, after everything you've done. They don't see it that way. They see a hospital that was almost destroyed, a conspiracy that happened right under my nose, an assistant who betrayed me for 3 years while I trusted her completely. Miranda's voice was bitter. In their eyes, that's not survival. That's failure. That's not fair. Fair doesn't exist in boardrooms, James. Only results. She stood up. I should go. I need to prepare. Miranda. It's okay. She forced a smile. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll handle it. I always do. She walked to the door, paused, turned back. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For staying when everyone else would have left. I'm not going anywhere, James said. I know. Her voice cracked. That's what makes this so hard. She was gone before he could ask what she meant. James didn't sleep that night. He sat in his apartment staring at the ceiling, thinking about Miranda's face when she'd walked out. The way her voice had cracked. The way she'd said, "That's what makes this so hard," like she was already saying goodbye. He understood now. The board meeting wasn't just about her job. It was about her identity. Everything she'd built. Everything she'd sacrificed. Everything she'd become. And she was preparing to lose it all. At 6 in the morning, James made a decision. He showered, shaved, put on the only suit he owned, the same one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 5 years ago. It still fit barely. The shoulders were tight, the pants a little short. But it was clean, and it was his. He drove to Sterling Medical Center as the sun was rising over Lake Michigan. The board meeting was scheduled for 9. James arrived at 7:30. The security guard at the executive entrance. Marcus, the same one who'd stood silent while Miranda destroyed him 6 weeks ago, looked up in surprise. "Mr. Carter, what are you doing here? I need to see the board. The meeting doesn't start for another hour and a half." "I know." James straightened his tie. "I'm going to wait." Marcus hesitated. Then he nodded slowly and stepped aside. "Good luck," he said quietly. "She deserves someone in her corner." James walked into the building that had changed his life. The boardroom was empty when he arrived. 20 leather chairs arranged around a mahogany table that probably cost more than his car. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. The kind of room where fortunes were made and lives were destroyed with the stroke of a pen. James chose a seat at the far end. Waited. At 8:15, the board members began arriving. Men and women in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases and speaking in hushed, serious tones. They glanced at James with confusion, then dismissal. A maintenance man in a cheap suit. Probably lost. None of them asked him to leave. At 8:47, Miranda walked in. She froze when she saw him. "James? What are you—" "I'm here to speak to the board." "That's not— You can't just— Watch me." The board chair, a silver-haired man named Harrison, whose handshake probably cost more than James's monthly rent, cleared his throat. "Ms. Sterling, who is this gentleman?" Miranda opened her mouth, closed it, looked at James with an expression he couldn't read. "This is James Carter," she said finally. He's the reason we're all still here." Harrison raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sure I understand." "Then let me explain." James stood up. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady. 6 weeks ago, your CEO fired me. She ripped my badge off my chest in front of my 9-year-old daughter and told me I was replaceable. A murmur rippled through the room. 20 minutes later, this hospital went dark. 47 patients on life support. 3 surgeries in progress. A transplant organ with a 40-minute window. James looked around the table. Your emergency team couldn't figure out what was wrong. Your backup systems failed. Your engineers were running in circles. He paused. I came back. I fixed it. Not because anyone asked me to. Not because I was getting paid. But because people were dying and I was the only one who could stop it. Harrison shifted in his seat. Mr. Carter, we appreciate your service, but I'm not sure what this has to do with— I'm not finished. The room went silent. After that night, Ms. Sterling came to me. She told me someone was trying to destroy her hospital. She asked for my help. James's voice hardened. I could have said no. I could have walked away. God knows she'd given me every reason to. But I didn't. Because I saw something in her that night. Something real. Something worth saving. He turned to face Miranda. I spent 6 weeks investigating the people who were trying to tear this place apart. I watched. I listened. I followed trails that led to offshore accounts and secret meetings, and a conspiracy that went all the way to the top of your biggest competitor. He looked back at the board. Denise Hayes is in federal custody. Richard Cole is awaiting extradition. The evidence I gathered is the reason this hospital is still standing. James's jaw tightened. And now you want to fire the woman who had the courage to ask for help. The woman who trusted a janitor when she had every reason not to. The woman who put her pride aside and admitted she couldn't do it alone. Harrison's face was unreadable. Mr. Carter, I'm not finished. James stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but he didn't care. You want to talk about leadership, fine. Let's talk about leadership. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about what you do when everything goes wrong. He pointed at Miranda. This woman faced the worst betrayal of her life. The person she trusted most in the world stabbed her in the back. And instead of hiding, instead of covering it up, instead of pretending it wasn't happening, she did something about it. She fought. She survived. She saved this hospital. His voice dropped. That's leadership. That's strength. And if you can't see that, then you don't deserve to sit in those chairs. The silence that followed was absolute. Harrison looked at James, then at Miranda, then back at James. Mr. Carter, he said slowly, you realize you're not a board member. You have no standing to address this meeting. I know. And yet you're here anyway. Yes. Why? James didn't hesitate. Because sometimes the people who matter most are the ones nobody thinks to ask. The ones who get overlooked. The ones who do the work nobody sees. He met Harrison's eyes. I've spent my whole life being invisible, but I see things. I see what this hospital is. I see what she's built, and I see what you're about to throw away. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up. I think, he said, we've heard enough. James felt his heart sink. He'd failed. He'd tried, and he'd failed, and Miranda was going to lose everything because he couldn't find the right words. But Harrison wasn't looking at James. He was looking at Miranda. Ms. Sterling. Harrison said, I've been on this board for 23 years. I've seen CEOs come and go. I've watched people build empires and lose them. I've made decisions I'm proud of and decisions I regret. He paused. But I have never seen anyone walk into a boardroom and defend someone the way this man just defended you. Miranda's eyes were glistening. The motion to remove you as CEO is withdrawn, Harrison continued. Effective immediately. A gasp rippled through the room. Furthermore, I'm recommending that Mr. Carter be offered a permanent position on the executive team. Title to be determined. Harrison smiled, the first genuine smile James had seen from him. God knows we could use someone around here who actually sees things. James stood frozen. He didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. Then Miranda was crossing the room, walking toward him with tears streaming down her face. She stopped inches away. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yeah, James said. I did. Why? He reached out and took her hand. Right there in front of the entire board, in front of everyone. Because you're worth fighting for. And I should have told you that a long time ago. Miranda looked at him, really looked with eyes that held everything she'd never been able to say. Then she kissed him. Not soft, not uncertain, not asking permission. This kiss was fierce, desperate. The kind of kiss that said, I've been waiting for you my whole life, and I didn't even know it. When they finally pulled apart, the boardroom was absolutely silent. Then Harrison started clapping. One by one, the other board members joined in. James stood there holding Miranda's hand, feeling something he'd thought he'd never feel again. Hope. The girls came home that afternoon. James and Miranda picked them up together, driving the same car, sitting side by side, their fingers intertwined on the center console. Maya spotted them first. Daddy! She burst out of the cabin and sprinted across the lawn, crashing into James's arms with enough force to nearly knock him over. I missed you so much, she said into his chest. So much. I missed you too, baby. James held her tight, breathing in the smell of her hair, feeling the solid weight of her in his arms. I missed you every second. Sophie was more hesitant. She walked slowly toward them, watching Miranda with careful eyes. Mom? Hey, sweetheart. Is it over, the bad stuff? Miranda knelt down so she was eye level with her daughter. It's over, she said. The bad stuff is over. Promise? Promise. Sophie threw herself into Miranda's arms. And for the first time in longer than James could remember, Miranda didn't look uncomfortable, didn't look stiff. She just held her daughter and let the tears come. Daddy. Maya tugged on James's sleeve. Yeah, baby. Are you and Ms. Sterling together now? James looked at Miranda. Miranda looked at him. "Yeah," he said. "I think we are." Maya considered this for a moment. Then she turned to Sophie. "Does this mean we're going to be sisters?" Sophie's face lit up. Can we please?" Miranda laughed a real laugh, free and unguarded. "Let's take it one step at a time," she said. "But, yeah, I think that's where we're headed." The girls looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them, the kind only children understand. Then they both started screaming with joy. The months that followed were the happiest of James's life. Not perfect. Life was never perfect. There were arguments and misunderstandings and moments when the old wounds flared up and made everything hard. But there was also laughter. So much laughter. Maya and Sophie became inseparable. They shared a room on weekends, built blanket forts that took over entire living rooms, stayed up past bedtime, whispering secrets in the dark. James took the position Harrison had offered Chief of Operations, a title that made him uncomfortable, but a job that fit him perfectly. He walked the floors of Sterling Medical Center every day, talking to nurses and janitors and patients, fixing problems before they became crises, seeing the things nobody else saw. Miranda stepped back from the day-to-day management. Not completely. She was still CEO, still the face of the hospital, but she learned to delegate, to trust, to let other people carry some of the weight. She was home for dinner most nights. She attended school plays and soccer games. She learned to be present in a way she'd never been before. "You're different," Sophie told her one night while Miranda was tucking her in. "Different how? You're softer." Sophie thought about it. "Like, before you were always thinking about other things. Even when you were here, you weren't really here. But now you're here." Sophie smiled. "Really here?" Miranda felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, "for all the times I wasn't." "It's okay, Mom." Sophie reached up and touched her face. "You're here now. That's what matters." On a Sunday morning in October, James woke up early. Miranda was still sleeping beside him, something that still felt like a miracle, even after all these months. Her hair was spread across the pillow. Her face was relaxed, peaceful, younger than she looked when she was awake. He watched her for a long moment, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her eyelashes fluttered when she dreamed. Then he slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen. An hour later, when Miranda and the girls stumbled in for breakfast, they found the table set with pancakes and bacon and fresh squeezed orange juice. "What's all this?" Miranda asked, rubbing her eyes. "Family breakfast." James set a plate in front of her. "I was thinking we could make it a tradition." "A tradition?" "Yeah, every Sunday. No phones, no work, just us." Maya and Sophie exchanged glances. "Can we have chocolate chips in our pancakes?" Maya asked. "You can have whatever you want." "Can we get a dog?" Sophie added. Miranda laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." "But Daddy said—" Everyone froze. Sophie's face went pale. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean I wasn't trying to—" "Hey." James crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. "Look at me." She looked. "You can call me whatever you want to call me." "Dad James." "Hey, you whatever feels right." He took her hand. "What matters is that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "My real dad," she whispered. "He left. He promised he'd stay, and then he left, and he never came back." "I know. How do I know you won't do the same thing?" James thought about his answer carefully. This mattered. This mattered more than anything he'd ever said. "You know why I came back to the hospital that night?" he asked. "The night the power went out." Sophie shook her head. "Because I made a promise to myself a long time ago. When Maya was born. I promised that I would be the kind of father who shows up. Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient. Every single day. No matter what. He squeezed her hand. Your dad broke his promises. That's on him. That's his failure. But I don't break mine. James met her eyes. I'm choosing to be here, Sophie. I'm choosing you, and I'm going to keep choosing you every single day until you believe it. Sophie stared at him for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Daddy, she whispered. James felt his heart crack open in the best possible way. I love you too, sweetheart. I love you too. The wedding was simple. They held it in the backyard of the house they'd bought together, a place in Evanston, with a big yard and a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for everyone. Miranda had wanted something bigger, more impressive, but James had talked her out of it. I don't need a mansion, he'd told her. I just need a home. She'd kissed him then, long and slow, and hadn't mentioned mansions again. The guest list was small. Family, what little they had. Friends from the hospital. The veterans James had served with, some of whom had traveled from across the country to be there. Maya and Sophie served as co-maids of honor, a title they'd invented and defended vigorously when the wedding planner tried to correct them. Bear, the German shepherd they'd adopted 3 months ago, Sophie's wish had finally been granted, wore a bow tie and spent most of the ceremony trying to eat it. James wore a new suit this time. Miranda wore white, not a gown, just a simple dress that let her move and breathe and be herself. They wrote their own vows. Miranda went first. A year ago, I thought I knew what strength looked like. I thought it meant never showing weakness, never asking for help, never letting anyone see the parts of yourself that weren't perfect. She looked at James with tears streaming down her face. I was wrong. Strength isn't armor, it's vulnerability. It's reaching out when you're drowning. It's admitting you don't have all the answers. It's letting someone see you, really see you, and trusting them not to look away. Her voice cracked. You saw me, James, at my worst, at my most broken. And instead of running, you stayed. You held me together when I couldn't hold myself. You taught me that being loved isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. She took his hands. I promise to see you back, every day, in your strength and your struggle and everything in between. I promise to show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to build something with you, not a company or a hospital or a legacy, but a life, a real life, full of Sunday breakfasts and blanket forts and 2 daughters who think we're embarrassing but love us anyway. She smiled through her tears. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home, for as long as you'll have me. James was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I'm not good with words. Never have been. I'm better with my hands, fixing things, building things, making broken stuff work again. He looked at Miranda. But some things can't be fixed. Some things are just broken forever. And I spent a long time believing I was one of those things. After Sarah died, after I lost everything, I thought the best I could hope for was survival. Just getting through each day without falling apart. He shook his head. Then I met you. And you were so frustrating, so stubborn, so convinced you knew everything when you didn't know anything at all. A soft laugh rippled through the guests. You fired me in front of my daughter. You made me feel invisible. But then you called me back. When everything was falling apart, you called me back. And that's when I realized something. He reached up and touched her face. You weren't the cold, untouchable CEO I thought you were. You were scared and alone and desperate for someone to see past the armor. And I thought this woman has been waiting her whole life for someone to show up for her. Really show up. Not for her money or her power or what she could give them. Just for her. His voice dropped. I'm showing up now. And I'm going to keep showing up, every single day, in the good times and the bad times and the boring times in between. I'm going to be here, present, steady, yours. He smiled. I promise to keep fixing things, even when you insist they're not broken. I promise to make breakfast and walk the dog and pretend to lose at board games so the kids feel good about themselves. I promise to listen when you talk and hold you when you cry and tell you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it. He leaned closer. And I promise to love you. Not the idea of you. Not the CEO or the philanthropist or the woman the world sees. Just you. The real you. The one who's scared and stubborn and strong and soft all at the same time. He kissed her forehead. That's my promise. And I don't break my promises. The officiant, an old army chaplain James had served with, cleared his throat. I think that covers it, he said. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. The kiss lasted long enough for Sophie to groan, and Maya to start timing it on her watch. 14 seconds, Maya announced. New record. The reception was chaos in the best possible way. Dancing and laughter and too much cake. The girls stayed up past midnight running in circles with Bear until they collapsed in exhausted heaps on the lawn. James carried Maya to bed. Miranda carried Sophie. They met in the hallway outside the girls' rooms, faces flushed, hearts full. Hi, Miranda said. Hi. We're married. We are. That's crazy. Completely crazy. James pulled her close. Best kind of crazy there is. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the darkness, listening to the sounds of their daughters breathing in the rooms behind them. James. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For coming back. Miranda's voice was barely a whisper. That night at the hospital. You could have kept walking. You should have kept walking, but you came back. And everything started from that moment. James thought about it. The badge on the floor, Maya crying in the elevator, the $63 in his account, the life he'd been so sure was ending. I almost didn't, he admitted. I almost kept walking. What stopped you? Maya. She looked at me and asked if I was going back to help. James smiled. And I realized something. The kind of man I wanted her to see, the kind of man I wanted to be, that man doesn't walk away. Not from people who need him. Not ever. Miranda pulled back and looked at him. You're a good man, James Carter. I'm trying to be. You're succeeding. She kissed him again, soft, tender, full of promise. Come on, she said. Let's go to bed. We've got Sunday breakfast in the morning. The girls will want chocolate chips. The girls always want chocolate chips. I'll make extra. They walked down the hallway together, hand in hand, toward the bedroom they shared, toward the life they'd built, toward the future they'd chosen. Outside, the Chicago night hummed with possibility. Stars flickered overhead. The lake lapped against distant shores. And inside a house in Evanston, a family slept. Two broken people who'd found each other in the darkness. Two little girls who'd learned to trust again. A dog named Bear who snored at the foot of someone's bed. Not perfect. Never perfect. But whole. James Carter had spent 52 years learning one simple truth. The people who matter most are often the ones we overlook. The janitor who keeps the building alive. The single parent working double shifts. The veteran who came home and found himself invisible. We see right past them. We forget they exist. We treat them like they're replaceable, but they're not. They're the ones who show up when everything falls apart. The ones who fix what's broken. The ones who hold the world together while everyone else is looking somewhere else. James had been invisible his whole life. And then one night in a building gone dark, a woman who'd thrown him away looked at him and finally saw what he was. Not a janitor. Not a maintenance man. Not someone to be dismissed and forgotten. A hero. Not the kind who wears capes or saves the world in spectacular ways. The kind who shows up. Who stays. Who refuses to let the people he loves face the darkness alone. That's the only kind of hero that matters. And that's exactly who James Carter turned out to be.